Welcome back. Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross here with you on the Triple Option on our very own channel and also on 365 Sports. After this segment, you're going to see Peyton Soysher is going to tell you about this week. So the first one, Garrett, is just kind of about the movers and shakers.
Yeah, it's the movers and shakers. What took place this weekend. Like, what were the biggest games that caused the biggest movements? And then tomorrow he dives into what could happen with Ole Miss and Notre Dame, which is pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that could happen that he's projecting right now, what he's projecting right now is that Ole Miss, the computers are telling that Ole Miss is going to be in front of Notre Dame. But Notre Dame only has the one loss.
Right.
So he
and
thinks that Notre Dame
win.
Yeah, and so Notre Dame, he thinks that Notre Dame is probably going to be ahead of them in spite of what the computer is saying. So even though his algorithm is saying one thing, he's already giving you that, like, this is where the humans come into this. So all that being said, the big games this week, obviously Georgia and Ole Miss, which we haven't talked about yet. Mm-hmm. Biggest win of Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss career.
Definite, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. First time he's really had a win like this. And to do it
with all those injuries?
With Jackson Dart, like, willing himself back out onto the field. And
that first drive, I thought it was over. The first drive of that game, when they came out and Jackson Dart gets banged up and they looked as pathetic as possible, I was like, oh, my God, they're in for an ass whooping.
Yeah.
And they were able to turn it around. It was really impressive. I didn't think they were going to have a chance without Trey Harris. I honestly didn't. Ulysses Bentley went off. Hats off to Ole Miss. That was impressive. I think we kind of saw this with Georgia. Like, they're vulnerable. That's one of the better things about this year to me is that there's not a team who isn't vulnerable. Like, everybody can get got. But no, I mean, that was with Beck kind of being up and down and being able to turn the ball over as much as he has. You knew somebody was going to get him. I was not expecting Ole Miss to get him like that, though.
Yeah, no, I was not either. I thought Georgia would win the game. I thought Georgia would win. As a matter of fact, most people in our pick'em thought Georgia would win the game. The winner, I believe, this week was 8-2.
I was horrible. I know that. I went like
you were
4 or 5 games.
You were 3-7.
It was pathetic.
You were 3-7. You could have been 0-0 like Craig was.
Oh no! It took me till Friday to put them in.
This is okay. Here's the deal. Craig forgot to do his picks this week, but because I went 6-4 and he was 4 games ahead of me, I only jumped him by 2 games.
Okay, but you're the man now
for this week.
That's all that matters.
For this week, I'm only still 2. It's what I mean. Why? Not fair.
He's good. He's good at making picks.
Good. Yeah, he's really good. Again, no emotion. No emotion in it. Divorced himself from it. About 8 of the picks I can have no emotion about, but there's always some. And here's the thing. I could pick games that I have no emotion about, but then sometimes those aren't the best games.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the week I went 10-0, I had no feeling about any of those games. I was just picking based on
just
that.
To pick.
When I've lost, I've either lost because it's a pick 'em game, right? Or I had an emotion that clouded my judgment.
That's fair. Like, I know I did have an emotion cloud my judgment on the damn. I picked LSU and told myself not to. I knew they had no chance.
Yeah.
I knew they had no chance. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah. I don't. I'm mad at myself for a couple of them, too. I picked Iowa State to beat Kansas. And,
I did, too.
You know. I should have, with Iowa State, like, put more weight to them being a little bit down after last week.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't think
2 in a row
Kansas could get them like that.
2 in a row at home.
Yeah.
2 in a row at home.
And I know Jack kind of
disagreed
with me.
That was at Arrowhead. Never, that was at
Arrowhead.
Yeah. I keep having these memories of it, and you look up in the stands, and everything's red and gold. And so I kept thinking, like, oh, man, they're in Ames, and then they'd, like, zoom out and, like, oh, no, that stadium could eat Ames.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they're at Arrowhead. So, yeah, I don't. I'm just mad at myself for being emotional. But Garrett, that was a big one. Miami and Georgia Tech, we talked about it a little bit. Miami and Georgia Tech really puts into question to me that if Miami can win in the playoff. I think they're going to earn their way there because Cam Ward is so good. But that defense has been playing fast and loose for a while. And Georgia Tech style and the way Brent Key just owns Mario Cristobal. Just go, go, go. And they did a great job defensively on Cam Ward, even though, I think he had 3 touchdown passes, but they had stretches where they just contained him. So Miami was never able to get out and run. That's the thing. They're not Seabiscuit that needs to know that they're in a race before they start playing well.
They're Colorado of the ACC.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a high-flying offense. They have an electric quarterback. They have playmakers all over the place. But Colorado's defense is better now than what Miami's is.
Yeah.
I think they could, if they needed to draw, they're going to have to draw the right matchup and hope that they can outscore somebody in the first round. And they might be able to get a win. I do not see Miami being able to make it past one round of the playoffs. I just don't see it.
Yeah. No, I mean, if they get that bad matchup, right? If they get that bad matchup, and right now Miami is at 11th in the AP poll and 12th in the coaches poll, but Oregon can run at you, Ohio State can run at you, Texas can run at you, Penn State can run at you. I still think they would beat Penn State.
I think that's the one. I think they could beat Penn State.
Indiana's 5 now.
Who's the best? I know this kind of gets sidetracked, but who is the best overall team you've seen so far this year?
Oregon.
Okay. Me and Jack were talking about this. I've only seen Oregon play once, and I think a lot of it's because of the times that they come on. But I would probably have to give the edge to them, but I think I'm putting Texas up there too. I think those are the best 2 teams overall I've seen all year. I think if Texas played Georgia again on a neutral field, they beat the hell out of them.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure.
That's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But, Alabama's going to run at you. Notre Dame's definitely going to run at you. BYU's going to run at you. Tennessee's got Sampson. They're going to run at you.
Yeah, but here's what Tennessee – does Tennessee start getting the Florida State thing with Nico being hurt?
Yeah,
that was my first thought with them. Like, especially with Georgia coming up, and I don't know his status right now. He could be
Heupel said he's in great shape.
Okay, well, then that's that. But that was one thing. When he went down, I was like, okay, do we need to start viewing Tennessee with that Florida State lens for as the season unfolds?
Yeah. Heck, what if Miami gets Army?
They don't want that. They don't want that.
That's those conflicting styles.
They don't want Army.
Yeah. Army now at 16, they're starting to get noticed.
I can't wait for that Notre Dame game in Army. That's the one. Because if they can get Notre Dame, then that can make things really interesting.
Yeah. Then, because
I'm still not sold on Notre Dame.
Yeah. I think this year is also showing you, though, like, all right, I know that you're going to do 4 Big Ten and 4 SEC teams, but, I mean, what?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
I'll say it. I don't.
If Penn State and Army, if Penn State, Washington State, Army, and Boise State are all together in the 1 loss or less category, which Penn State and Boise State each have a loss, and to the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country, so I get that. But Army could maybe be undefeated, and Washington State could have a loss to just 1 loss to another playoff team, which would be one of the top 12 in the country, right?
Correct.
So why, outside of Penn State being Penn State,
correct,
and hosting a playoff game at Happy Valley and how cool that would look, what have they done that's any better than anything that any of those other teams have done?
Nothing. They got beat by Ohio State.
They got beat by the one good team they've played.
Yeah, but I mean,
so if you get to a point where you say have Wazoo and Boise State, or Boise State and Army right there, and you have 4 Big Ten teams, of which Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana are likely going to be 3 of them, and Penn State the 4th. And so Indiana's had some big wins.
But they still got Ohio State. We got to see. That could shake itself out.
But if Indiana loses to Ohio State and Penn State loses to Ohio State, what's to keep why would you just say that those teams are automatically better? Because when they've been presented with a team that can beat them, they've lost.
No,
but
I
they
agree
haven't
with
played
you.
a lot of teams that could beat them, as where Boise State certainly played some teams that could beat them. Army will have beaten Notre Dame. So, like, to me, the schedules are still kind of –
They're just going to say body of work because of the conference you're in.
But
that's all it is.
I don't think that the bottom rung of the Big Ten is so much further ahead of the top end of the AAC.
Well, it's not. That's what I don't like. That's what goes back to what I was saying the other day about, like, you're going to have to eventually get to a point with the conferences being so big where you have to have, like, some sort of inside playoff to figure out who's actually going to do it.
But also, Wazoo's beaten Texas Tech, Washington. The rest of their schedule.
And they got beat by Boise's their only loss?
Boise's their only loss.
I mean, I can't make an argument with that. I don't know. They're going to get left out because
they beat two Power 4 teams and lost to what's Boise State lost to the number 1 team in the country, and
they would have to run the table to get in.
And
see, and that's another thing. Like, what happens, though?
Boise State's problem is that they don't play. That was the one power conference team they play. So they've got to run the table. But, I mean.
So we're in a situation right now where if Army runs the table, they would jump Boise because their win over Notre Dame would put them in and they would be undefeated? And Boise would be on the outside looking in with one loss to Oregon?
Maybe. That's where it gets confusing to me. I'm just saying, when you say that we're not going to take 2 Big 12 teams, we're not going to take 2 ACC teams, we're not going to take 2 G5 teams, when you've already kind of made that determination of if it's 4 and 4 from these other, and then the other 4 will come out of, Notre Dame, the Big 12, the ACC, and 1 G5. Well, if Notre Dame has 2 losses, and one of those to Army, and Army doesn't have one, like, you can't put Notre Dame in over Army. So I think that it's going to take a long time for people to see the metrics change.
Yeah.
And while the SEC will maybe always have kind of a built-in advantage because of they've got the collection of the most consistently elite teams.
Yes.
They'll see that built-in advantage. I think the Big Ten may over time get exposed a little bit.
I think it's going to get exposed.
Because, yes, Oregon's the best team in it right now by a point too. Like, not that much ahead of Ohio State, who's always been the best team in it, really, forever. Penn State has been the same forever, and then you've got this kind of rotating door like you do in every other conference of a team that's good this year. They may not be good next year, but it's rotating door. Like, the back ends of all the conferences are not really all that different.
No.
They're really not all that different. And that's where I have a problem with the conference by conference comparisons, because Mississippi State is not a better win or a better loss than
Iowa State,
or Kansas, right? Like, that's not. They're the same. They're the same. But because Mississippi State has that weight, or Kansas is not a worse loss than Purdue or Washington this year, right? Washington maybe, but like, that's not a worse loss than that. But I don't know. I digress. Let me finish up. I don't have enough time to get into everything I wanted to say about the FSU coaching staff.
Oh, do you want your graphic?
Yeah, throw out my graphic here. They fired 3 assistants. Do we feel like this is appropriate and professional?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Because that emoji pretty much describes their season. A big flaming pile of crap. They are 1-9 after 13-0. This is the worst follow-up since Godfather 3. It's just not great. And I think Mike Norvell clearly has shown he can do some things, but I cannot begin to describe how they must be feeling because I don't know. But every decision they made from the day after they got snubbed until right now was the wrong one.
Yep.
And they needed to upgrade the coaching staff. They needed to find spots where they could have upgraded the coaching staff, and they didn't a year ago. And there are guys, the 3 guys who got let go, Dugans, Atkins, Fuller, the two coordinators, even though Mike Norvell's the play caller.
Correct.
And Alex Atkins is the offensive line coach, but offensive line and wide receiver were the worst two positions this year.
Well, offensive line was the worst. That might be the worst offensive line of college football. It's bad, dude.
Yeah, it's awful. They can't do anything. Now, look, the quarterbacks are not developing, so I see other coaches getting let go, and we'll see like who's all there at the end of this thing. You can't just let them all go now. You got 2 games left. But letting these, especially the offensive and defensive coordinator, wide receivers, and offensive line where it's not been great, letting them go, then it sends the message of, hey, we're gonna go giant hunting. You know, I honestly think that they need to, not that they would get a guy like this, but when you let these people go from that are 13-0 and then 1-9, whoever the best offensive line coach that you think is available that can recruit and develop, you've got to make an offer to him. Mm-hmm. And then you have to go down the list of, it's not about, and here's the thing, it's not about connections and all that. It's about people who can work within your system and people who can shoot some life into it and people who can recruit. So even if you've never worked that person before, it's time to go outside the box and do it. Right. I'll just suggest one. Look, Ron Dugan's let go of wide receivers coach. The first person I would call, even though they have no chance of getting him.
Brian Hartline?
Yes. You know why? Well, where's he getting all those? Where's
Texas and Florida?
Where's Jeremiah Smith from?
Florida?
It's from Miami. All right?
He's getting them from Texas and Florida?
Yeah. So he's not getting all those guys from Cincinnati and Cleveland.
No.
Akron. None of them not getting guys from there because he's the guy's one of the best recruiters, but I would go find the best recruiter. And it's just not wide receivers that he gets. But he's, he does what the best recruiters do. I'll tell you, Keenan Hall here at Baylor is a great recruiter.
He is an elite recruiter.
And here's why Keenan Hall is great. He's the running backs coach, and he could be a wide receivers coach and probably eventually a coordinator too. Although he may not be a coordinator because he might be just too good a recruiter to not be bogged down and doing the full game plan.
He reminds me of Samples. The younger Samples. Just elite recruiting.
Yeah, so you may have him. He's your running back coach. You know what he's going to go do? He's going to get his 5 running backs, and his room's going to be taken care of. Yep. Like the first thing off the list is let me go take care of my guys. And then you go to the other coaches and go, hey, where can I help you close this deal? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I need to make some inroads with this left guard, from Boynton Beach.
Then let's do it.
And then all right, let's go. Oh, by the way, while we're down there, there's a wide receiver I need to, and all those. Mm-hmm. That's what the kind of guy they need. That's where Keenan Hall is unbelievable. And you can see his effect in 6 months already on the recruiting. And it's not just about the guys that they've got committed, because who knows what happens in a month when signing day is. It's less than a month now. Mm-hmm. But, right? No.
Yeah, it's about a month out. It's less than a month out.
It's less than a month out. So when signing day happens, okay, there it is. Then you've got, but it's the guys who are not coming into the room that are.
Just get them in the building.
Yeah, get them in the building. Florida State's pretty good at getting guys in the building. They're pretty good at getting guys in the building, where they were until 2 months ago. Really a month ago. They've had a lot, but what Mike Norvell's not good at doing is closing those high school guys. He's good at closing the portal guys, and that's his thing. But the high school guys, you got to find a guy who can close the high school guys. Mm-hmm. And what they need to do is start down that list and go completely outside the box. And I think Mark Norvell will do that. I think, benefit of the doubt, but he's got to make some big waves because $10 million a year or no $10 million a year. If he doesn't get them back to where, I don't think they need to compete for the ACC again next year, but they need to at least look like they could.
All right.
If they don't make a bowl game next year, especially if they start out poorly, he'll be gone early. Mm-hmm. He'll be gone early, and then we'll see the do they go crawling back to Dion thing.
I don't know, man. I'm wondering if he is staying at Colorado.
Oh, I think he is, but. Well, I think he is. We'll see.
I never thought it, but over the past 2 or 3 weeks, especially keep an eye on their recruiting, I think he might be staying there.
I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he is. I think the only thing that's going to make him leave is what's the next chapter of the what can I do place B that I didn't do place A?
Right.
Like that's the only thing that's going to get him to leave, because believe me, he's not going to like admit defeat.
No.
So the only thing that would be admitting defeat is, well, we've kind of hit the wall with our resources here, with the commitment. But if I went to place B, I know that we'll have that.
Yeah. And I think they're all in with him. Well, literally, that's their tagline. But I mean,
yeah, but
they're
like they are. But then, you know, we'll see, like, again, it's got to be year over year, and things are going to change. How, like, what does he do to improve his staff next year?
Yeah, because that's definitely got to get upgraded.
He's got, like, defense. He made a really good defensive coordinator hire, for sure. But is Phil Lodeholt back as offensive line coach? Because that's still not great. Is Pat Shurmur back as offensive coordinator? Because
that's what I don't think.
Because here's where he needs what I think an upgraded offensive coordinator is. Travis Hunter gone, Shadur gone, Jimmy Horn Jr. gone, LeJontay Wester gone. I think Will Shepard might be back. And they have some other guys there that aren't playing that are probably as good as, you know, maybe everybody but Hunter.
Yeah.
But they're losing a lot of playmakers. They can get them back in the portal, but also the quarterback does not share DNA with Deion Sanders.
It's going to be a Florida State situation.
What?
It's going to be a Florida State situation they're facing.
So yeah, like they're losing a lot of guys.